Hello everyone, I'm Wave. I've been wanting to do another tier list, and since I figured I'm probably gonna wait a little longer until I do the next route tier list, I'd go ahead and try something a little different and try doing a visual novel waifu tier list instead. If you've watched a couple of these tier lists from my channel before, you already know the drill, but just for anyone that is popping in for the first time, on the far right side of the screen you should see some form of template. You should have at least the name of the character, what game they're from, and like what music is currently playing in the background. One last little thing that I want to mention before we get into it is I didn't put too many characters on the list this time, just because I feel like I don't want to have a case to where C tier just have like 80 different characters that are all just buried up into the list, and there's like no real rhyme or reason, no semblance as to like, you know, just be wasting time. I figure I can yap forever when it comes to some of these tier lists, so I wanted to kind of try and condense it down. This is 49 characters. Don't ask me why I didn't just decide to like randomly grab one extra character to toss into making it even 50. I don't know. It's 49. What I tried to do is already grab what I would say is some more like popular VN waifu characters that, at least from what I feel like I see people talking about from visual novels that I played. So I don't want to see anyone asking for where's the White Album 2 waifus. I have not read it yet. But yeah, I tried to grab some characters that were, that are, I would say, pretty popular, at least like as of current. I'll probably talk about some of the cast that are from the same games that I didn't put on the list, just so that way you guys have an idea. But I didn't want to grab like every single character from whatever like VN that is like maybe more popular, just because I was like, okay, well, I want to grab the ones that I think are more popular than others, and then at the same time I tried to kind of grab a variety of other characters that, for myself personally, that I would say probably are like high up there as far as VN waifus. And then also, we'll see as I get into it. I tried to maybe like, let's say, grab a character that is fairly popular, and then they have like a sort of counterpart, right? We would be like, oh, are you on this person's team as opposed to this person's team? Maybe some of the characters on this list aren't as popular, but I maybe tried to grab it because I figured it would be kind of fun that alongside the tier list that I can maybe rank some of the like the competition of like, romantic rivals. So let's go ahead and just dive right in before I yap too much. I have no idea how long this video is going to actually end up being. I figure 49 characters should be less, but we will really see once we get down into it. Where do I want to start? Let's go ahead and we can grab maybe like a sort of like VN rival slash, this is actually less of rivals, I would say, but maybe more like standard VN waifus, being from Nekopara. I'd put Chocolate and Vanilla because, you could, I see a fair amount of people saying like, maybe they like somebody else like Coconut instead. But I figured it works out well because I would actually say Chocolate is maybe more of like an A tier VN waifu for me. She's pretty like energetic. She's kind of like, I don't know, more of those like, it's weird because it's the cat girl VN, and I guess you could describe her as maybe more of like what you would probably expect from when they eventually get around to doing the dog girl VN instead, where she kind of is just like that, like lost puppy dog, where as soon as she sees the main character, perks up and is like super excited. But I don't know, I kind of like those types of characters where it is like they, I don't know, how would you explain it, like brighten up the mood, and like the room just like, lights up as soon as this character is like they make everyone around them feel a little bit more appreciated and loved and whatever. Vanilla is a package deal with Chocolate, I think. In most cases, she's kind of like a kudere, where she is kind of like has a flat like voice, I guess you would say, and is kind of like will tease the player character, and at the end of the day is like still somebody that cares about the main character, but at the same time is kind of like more of that toned down in contrast to Chocolate. And I think Vanilla is probably decent at leaving it in B tier. I don't think she's like that high up there, but I don't actually think too poorly of her either. Maybe we can set the baseline for something else that's kind of like a generic visual novel waifu. I feel like Monica, I saw her as like people's VN waifu quite some time back, because DDLC at this point is getting to be a little old, right? It's been quite some many years since DDLC dropped. But even now, every once in a while, I'll see somebody say that they really like Monica, and I think in a way, you know, despite the fact that you could say she's a kind of like generic normie VN waifu, I actually think she's got a lot more going for herself as opposed to a lot of other characters, right? Because I think Monica, in a way, is able to, like, from like the lore perspective of her role within the like story of Doki Doki Literature Club, she is able to kind of like break out and be a little bit more prominent outside of the game that she takes place in. You got what's it called? I mean, she has like the fourth wall breaking, but at the same time, I remember I think up until like a little bit after they did DDLC Plus release, Dan Salvato was doing this sort of like role play Twitter account for Monica, where he's like, you know, it was a whole Twitter account built around the fact of like, oh, it's Monica in real life and she's tweeting about random stuff. And I think in a way that kind of helped to kind of like bolster and make her feel, you know, you think about her more outside of the scope of just playing the game, right? And I think that helps a decent bit. So I could see why people would, even now, right? And like, let's say you read DDLC however long ago, and you've read a whole number of other VNs, but still deep down you still think Monica is like one of your top tier VN waifus. I could see that. For me, I don't know. I'm gonna see, like, after all that's been said and done, for me, I think Monica is kind of C tier. I feel like in the game itself, she is a little flat. I appreciate how the story ends. And then, like, even so, too, after all the other stuff that I said, like, official, right? DDLC actually has, like, a pretty thriving mod scene, which is kind of weird, right? VNs don't really get mods. DDLC getting mods. I remember there is like a mod that kind of takes the like the end sequence of DDLC and makes it to where you're like just sitting there at the desk with Monica, and it's like kind of almost like this what's like the word where it kind of is just like that like desktop pal or whatever you want to call, where you can just like sit there and she'll have a whole bunch of dialogue. I think they continuously would update it. You'd have stuff like it reads off of the calendar of your computer, so like let's say Christmas time, it will swap around the setting, and then it could read off of like your birthday. And then I think they added like little mini games, right? So you could play like chess against Monica and stuff like that. So in a way, Monica has like a lot going for her. But to me, consider I didn't really delve too much into that side of things, I think Monica is kind of just like a C tier for me. And like I said, I'm already like almost 10 minutes into the recording. I've done 3 out of the 49 waifus in this list. So let's go ahead and we can grab maybe something like Paulette. So I do like a lot of Lou's visual novels, so that is from like My Tetsu and Monobeno. Paulette, within the story of My Tetsu, you might know that it is kind of, the reputation is this like, oh, it's the train lolly game. But I do like that within the train lolly game, Paulette is the one character out of like the 3 main characters that isn't a lolly. She is, you know, like a full, like well-rooted adult. I like that she already has a career. She like knows what she's doing in life. And the whole thing is that like she's, you know, like a mature waifu. You don't have like the same trope, right, of like high school and having to like find out like what do you want to do in life. I like that Paulette is very much just like a fully fleshed out, like she has everything already, and it is just like romance side of bonding with her over the hobby that the main character and Paulette shares. I don't know, I like Paulette. I would say she's actually probably an S tier for me. I like her quite a bit. let's go ahead and we can grab, let's do Arcuit, I guess, next from Tsukihime. I have not read the original Tsukihime, but at least from myself completing, what is it called, Tsukihime Remake, I liked Arcuit quite a fair bit. She's kind of like an airhead, I guess you could say, but she is somebody that like wears her heart on her sleeve. She is pretty attractive as well, right? Obviously. I don't know. I like that she's like more active, right? That she's able to like fight, but at the same time be able to have a lot more like mundane moments within the story of Tsukihime, where it isn't just all fight scenes. You have like moments where you're able to kind of relax, talk to her, and build a relationship, go out on dates and stuff. Arcuit, I want to say, could be like an A tier, maybe. Yeah, I'll go ahead and say she's maybe like an A tier for me. Let's go ahead and grab this one, which is a pretty prominent VN Waifu that I see nowadays. I know people kind of get a little angry if you mess up her name. I'm pretty sure it's Murasame, so it's close enough to saying Muramase, which is like the sword, right? But I'm pretty sure her name is Murasame. If not, then I will have the correction on the right side of the screen within the little layout that I got for the tier list. Murasame is cute and funny. I almost think she's probably the most popular Ubisoft heroine, like as of current. There are other ones that are like pretty popular, but I think she is probably the one that is like the most popular, which it's cool. I mean, I know she's like, I like the voice actor. There's another character, so I didn't even mention it. I purposely left off what I would say is gacha visual novel characters because I didn't want this to just be flooded with a whole bunch of that, right? I figured I would purposely keep this tier list to the like specific dedicated, in quotation marks, visual novels. But there is like a gacha character that I like that has the same voice actor as Murasame. I like the voice acting. She's cute. The story with her gets a little bit more like involved later on, but like as a character herself, I don't know. She's alright. I feel like B tier is kind of fine for her, for me, at least. Let's go ahead and we can grab another Ubisoft. I have a couple of them on here, but we can kind of chip away at them as time goes on. This is Nene from Sabbath of the Witch. She is the horniest Ubisoft heroine, and I could see why people like her as well. She's got like a pretty revealing outfit. White-haired anime girls are like kind of rare, but at the same time maybe not. I do like the white-haired anime girls. I don't know, I feel like Nene has a little bit going on for her because of the fact of like how her route is a little bit more extensive than a lot of the other characters within the VN that she is from. But at the same time, I almost feel like Nene is maybe like a C tier for me. I think she's like alright for what she is, and I don't know, if you like Nene, cool. But for me personally, I wouldn't really say that she's at top of the list. Let's grab Saya, another like pretty, I guess you could say, basic VN waifu. She's very popular. Another cute and funny character, right? I don't know. I truly don't have a whole lot to say about Saya. She is that like kind of like clingy, I guess you could say. She is the character that like in a world of craziness within the story of Saya no Uta, or the Song of Saya, whichever way you word it for the name of the visual novel. Saya is cool, right? I mean, she's able to stick there with the character throughout, or stick there with the main character for all the craziness. So, I mean, I could see why people would become attached to Saya, because, you know, she is like your light within like a realm of darkness. Saya is I'd say she's probably like a C tier for me. Let's go ahead and we can grab key waifus, which I was contemplating not even putting Nagisa in here, because the thing is, like, to me too, Nagisa, when you think of Nagisa within Clannad, I think of her as being like romantically connected to the main character Tomoya. So I would not like put myself into the shoes of Tomoya. I think Tomoya is enough of like a determined, like fleshed out character on his own that I don't really think I could like see that like connectivity of like, oh yeah, Nagisa is like my VN waifu. That said, Nagisa is like one of the most like prevalent and important and popular visual novel characters like across the entire medium. So I figured I could put her on the list just to kind of get my thoughts on her. She is very heavily like uplifted off of the fact that she has a whole extra route, right? I have a couple of those characters on this list that have after stories that are like fleshed out more than just like some generic age scene stuff. Nagisa, you get kind of like that like relationship side outside of the generic high school that you see in a lot of visual novels, so I think it helps a good amount. I will say I remember in her like base route in high school, she's kind of like middle of the pack compared to a lot of the other clan heroines, at least for me. I think B tier is fine enough for myself personally. Let's go ahead and maybe grab what I would say is Nagisa bait, being Komori from Little Busters. I feel like I'm not alone in that whenever you start Little Busters, she is like on the, you know, poster girl. So I feel like in a way, she's kind of designed in a similar art style to Nagisa, to where people going into Little Busters expect her to be the quote-unquote like Nagisa of the story of Little Busters, and she really isn't. She is just this kind of like standalone character that has like a little bit of a supporting role, but not really. I will say, at least I do like her more than Nagisa. She's more cutesy. She is more that like wearing her heart on her sleeve, and in a way is kind of like Chocolat, where she's like, you know, trying to brighten the mood around all the people around her. I would say Komori could be like top of B tier. I'll probably go ahead and organize it a little bit more as we get deeper in, but yeah, we can go ahead and do that. Let's grab maybe something like, you know, I could bang this out real quick. I was not sure if I really wanted to put Zakuro from Wonderful Everyday on the tier list, but again, I was like, I feel like at least maybe like a year or two ago, I think I saw a decent amount of people saying that like she is kind of like their VN waifu, and like considering all the resurgence of, I guess, the video I made a little while back of like how Tsubihime has like blown up on TikTok, I think there is some relevance to Wonderful Everyday, aka Tsubihime, to like whatever you call it, where I think Zakuro is another one of those like kind of like Saya, where she is this like person that sticks with you and is kind of like, oh, she's the person that like is kind of clingy, but at the same time is maybe somebody that like gives you a little bit of that push to get through the story of the visual novel, despite how like dark it ends up getting. Zakuro, I almost want to say same thing, just like towards the bottom of C tier for me at least. Let's go ahead and let's do another like VN waifu rivals. I would grab Mion, and then if I can even find her, Reina from Higurashi. I feel like there is plenty of cases to where like I'm not even sure if this is Mion or Shion. I want to say this is Mion, but I think I don't remember, like so many people kind of like say that it's supposed to be like, oh, it's like niche that they like Shion more than they like Mion, but I don't know. I think there is like an argument to be made about like almost every single like waifu in Higurashi, bar from Hanyu, which is kind of unfortunate. I like the, the voice actor for Hanyu, but you know, I feel like I've seen people say that they like Rika. Seen a decent amount of people that say that they like Satoko, but to me, I think these are like the two main ones. And Reina, right? She shares the same voice actor as Nagisa. I remember a while back when there was a Higurashi mobile game that existed that no longer does. They did like visual novel collabs with like Steins Gate and then like Clanad and Canon and stuff, and they really did lean into the whole like Reina plus Nagisa are like best friends kind of trope thing. But I think Reina is really popular. I like the voice acting and stuff. That said, I think I'm more on Team Mion. I like that she's like pretty dependable, reliable. She's kind of like a tomboy in a way, but at the same time, she has her feminine side. I will say she's like one of the rare anime waifu characters that has green hair that I would say, yeah, is pretty popular. Maybe it's the shade of the green hair. I don't know. I like Mion a decent bit. I guess she could be an A tier. I almost think Reina could be like top B tier for now. Let me go ahead and I guess we can grab maybe some untranslated stuff. I hope that I did like a decent job of maybe having like a good enough mix between translated and not. I guess we can grab another duo. I made a video just because I feel like I really like the what's it called, the dynamic, or I guess it's a trope, not as much. I feel like I've seen a little bit more in the time since I made that video, and like I said with Don't Expect White Album 2 on this tier list, I think people like White Album 2 because I hear that it has that sort of like dynamic of one girl versus this other girl, and people like to discuss which team are you on. But I made a whole video on it because I do end up liking that trope, and I figured that would be kind of fun to discuss it within as like a little sub genre topic within this tier list. This is Yuki and then Hiyori within the untranslated visual novel Mizuhiro. Hiyori, I actually think she might be another S tier. I liked her a lot. I like the voice acting. She has this like very like cutesy high pitched voice. She's kind of, I wouldn't say an airhead, I would say she's more of like a gullible character, but at the same time she's always like well intentioned. She always is like trying to be like I don't know, she always wants to support her friends, and I don't know, she's kind of like the butt of the joke in a lot of the time throughout the story of Mizuhiro, and she has her cute moments. You have stuff where like, oh, she'll like be kind of pouty. I don't know, I like Hiyori. I think she's cute and she is pretty attractive as well. Yuki is like the rival to her, and within Yuki's own route, that's where you kind of get that like combination of like, okay, well, Hiyori is like more of like the romantic interest, and seeing like what kind of like jealousy or like sadness that kind of comes up as like, oh, if you're the person that loses within that like romantic rivalry. Yuki, I like her a decent bit. She kind of is a little tomboyish, and then at the same time is I do like her voice acting as well. I feel like Mizuhiro as a whole, Hiyori pretty much embodies how like the story of Mizuhiro is this like constantly like moving, energetic like story. So I think she's like the perfect poster girl for that. Yuki, I like. She has this almost like raspy, dry tone kind of voice, so that's why I'd say it kind of leads into like maybe she's a little bit of a tomboy, but at the same time, I like her. She has a lot more like prevalence throughout the story of Mizuhiro because she's like the main character's younger sibling. So on every other character route, you still get to have like plenty of moments where, you know, she still is like in the background of the story, supporting the main character. But I don't know. I want to say she could be kind of like in that part of B tier though. Let's go ahead and we can grab some more key stuff. Let's grab Tomoyo, and I always confuse because I don't know what it is with like naming conventions and the actual character designs. There's like 3 different girls in Clannad that all have purple hair. Granted, 2 of them are twins, but like I know people get confused on that. And the thing that's confusing to me is that there is Tomoyo, which is the girl, and then the main character is Tomoya. I'm not somebody that like really knows Spanish, but from what I remember back when I learned a little bit of Spanish, is that O is like the masculine and is like the feminine. So I always kind of confused. Like I'm like, oh, Tomoyo is the main character and Tomoya is the girl, but no, it's the other way around. And for whatever reason, you know, Nagisa having her own after story. Tomoyo got her own fan disc that was like a mini after story, and within that, for some reason too, they added a whole nother character that's also their name is Tomo. So it just is like a bunch of confusion when it comes to the naming conventions in Clannad for some reason. Tomoyo is that kind of like badass girl that is kind of aloof. She's kind of like doesn't like show too much emotions starting out until you kind of get to know her a little better. So I can see why people like Tomoyo. For me, I almost think she's like maybe down here. Let's grab VN Waifus, I guess. If I could find the first one. I mean, I can find her easily enough. What's weird is that it's only 49 characters, and somehow, some way, I'm having trouble finding Misaki. There we go, right here. Misaki is probably another one of those like really relevant, really like a lot of people say that she is like at the top of their visual novel waifu tier lists, or you know, whatever, however you would rank them. I can kind of see it. She's kind of like that dark, brooding character, to where instead of being like, you know, very flat, right, she is maybe a little bit more nuanced because of the fact that she like doesn't want to lose in the sport of Alcana and gets kind of depressed and stuff. She's very beautiful, but at the same time, I don't know, Misaki for me is kind of another like okay-ish visual novel waifu. I don't know. And then Mashiro, which is kind of like a counterpart, but you could say that main girl of Alcana is popular, but I don't know, I feel like I see more people hate on the main girl of Alcana than people that like her. So I decided to put Mashiro here instead, because I think I see a decent amount of people really like the fluffiness and the romance side of her route in general, where it's less about the sports and it is just mostly about the romance. She's like the cute kohai or whatever you want to say. She calls you senpai, and I don't know, you have like a lot of little like goofy moments where she's like talking to her little stuffed animals about like how she's like so like giddy over the fact that she's in a relationship. I can see why people like Mashiro. I would say that, yeah, she could probably be like maybe around there as well. Let's go ahead and do another dynamic. Let's do Steins Gate. Another one where you could say this is like a pretty like generic or like very, very popular visual novel waifu. And which team are you on? Are you on Team Kurisu or on Team Mayuri? Surprisingly, or what might surprise you, is I think I'm actually on Team Mayuri noticeably more. I don't know. I think we can put like Mayuri here. I like her. She is kind of like, you know, like I had said with some of the characters already in the tier list, that she is a bit of an airhead, but she always means well, right? She is the character that within the story of like the original Steins Gate, you want to protect her, but at the same time, I remember when I was reading Steins Gate 0 was when I really started to like come around to the fact that I was like, oh, I like Mayuri quite a decent bit. Kurisu is very popular. She is one of the standout tsunderes within visual novels and I guess anime as a whole. She's a redhead, which I only mention because, you know, I feel like, I don't know, it's a pretty attractive trait. Kurisu is pretty attractive. I think in general, I do like smart girls, but at the same time, I don't know, it almost is kind of like Nagisa in a way. I would say that, like, when I think of Kurisu, I would think that she is pretty much connected to Okabe rather than being connected to like whoever I am as like the main character. So I don't know. Kurisu, I want to say could be like down around Monica. And then let's go ahead and we can grab. Let me do this actually. I've talked a little bit about how I really like maybe like the voice acting impacts how I feel about a certain character. This is Saki from a non-translated visual novel that I read last year, being Aster. She is another character that has a full-blown after story that takes place after her like main original route. I think she's pretty attractive. Then also at the same time, I want to say Saki is probably the best voice acting I've heard in a visual novel, to where like the voice actor really sold the character to me, so much so that I would almost say Saki might be like top 5 like voice acted characters in general, as far as like across other like actual video games as well, to where you can have like a whole lot of, it's like, I don't know, I don't want to spoil too much, but I think Saki has like a very rocky relationship within the story of Aster. But I think that actually makes it like better once you come out from finishing Aster. Like I said, I think the voice acting really sells her. She's able to do a whole bunch of like being able to cry, being able to yell or shout, and make it feel like she is a little bit more like I was saying maybe with Misaki, where people really appreciate how she could be like at least a little bit more nuanced and not be as flat of a character. I think Saki is the least flat and like visual novel character, I think, as far as like heroines at least, right? Like, not talking about like male protagonists. I think out of like all the heroines in VNs that I've read so far, at least, I think Saki is probably, you know, like I would say the least flat VN character. So I would say she actually sells that pretty well for me. I guess bottom of A tier is solid enough for ranking. I guess real quick, we'll bang this out since I already did the other two Mizuhiro characters that I put on this list. I did a whole video on this girl, just because, I mean, another thing of like why I kind of have liked doing visual novel content here on YouTube is because, well, at least as far as non-translated stuff, is because I can look at like the JP side of things and see that, yeah, there are JP YouTubers that cover visual novels and how that's maybe like something more well-known. I like that within myself doing the like the non-translated visual novel stuff from time to time, that I can almost kind of like dig deeper into the, like, I guess you could say the trenches or the caves or whatever kind of like metaphor, and be able to pull out these like hidden gems that maybe, at least to me, I feel like it's a hidden gem, and kind of share that to you guys, the viewers, and maybe give you something that maybe you might be interested in checking it out. So that was like what that purpose of that video was, is that I kind of did like indifference to how I do the character route tier lists videos. I did a whole dedicated video around Shindo, and I like Shindo. She's another one of those like energetic characters, but I like the difference in that depending on which route you play in Mizuhiro, she feels like a completely different character, but at the same time, even though she feels like a completely different character, she still is the same like makeup throughout the entire visual novel as a whole. Shindo is cool. I like Shindo quite a bit. I don't know, we can rank the actual S tiers later. Let's go ahead and we can grab, I guess, another Yuzusoft character, or we can do two. Right. This is, I think her name's Nonami. She's from Cafe Stella, and I like her. She is a pretty like solid waifu. I think she's attractive. She is a childhood friend, and she kind of is almost like Hiyori, where she's, you know, childhood friend, a little pouty, a little clingy, but at the same time is pretty cute. And I guess I could say she might be like top of A tier for myself personally. This girl, I could pretend I know her name. I am blanking on it right now. I just think I've seen so many people online say that like she's like one of the most attractive characters they've seen in a visual novel ever. I think she's attractive. I don't know if there's much else apart from her looks that people really like, so I would say she might even be like all the way down, like maybe like down there. I don't know, I'd like a little bit more than just the looks. Let's go ahead and grab token lolly character Kood from Little Busters. Yeah, Kood is not the actual like face of Little Busters, like how Komori kind of is, right? Where I was saying she's like Nagisa bait. But I think over time, Kood has become the face of Little Busters. I think she is probably the most like well-loved and most like favorite out of all the key heroines across like every single one of their visual novels. Kood is cute. She's funny. She kind of has a little like quirk of, she's got the what would you call it? Accent, right? I don't know. I think she's cute. I think she is another one of those like, maybe what would be the word, like aloof, or is like maybe a little bit gullible, but at the same time means well and is trying to kind of like fit in. I think Kood's cool. I don't know. I would say I could probably put Kood like somewhere around these ones here. Hey, we could put Kood at like top of B tier. Let's go ahead and we can grab, you know what? Let's do another like little mini discussion that I was thinking of maybe having in this waifu tier list, which is something for myself personally, where I have, I guess it's like a trope, or I don't know, whatever you want to call it, where I like the long-haired badass girls with swords. Which is just like so specific. But I mean, I guess Maya actually fits that bill too, but we could save Maya for later. This is Mai from canon. This is Hisame from a non-translated visual novel that I read last year, being clear. And then this is Senba Uzuki from Akai Ito. And all three of them kind of fit that bill of like long, dark black hair, prominent like sword or katana, and they're badass. And all three of them are like personality wise kind of the same, where they are a little stoic. They don't really talk too much. They have like that kind of like lower pitch voice, and then as you grow and like just talk with them more and get to know them better, they start to reveal more of that like cute side within them, and you get to, you know, I don't know, get to like break past that point of like the hardened shell. Mai, I remember, I think was the first character that I was like, oh, I like that. Mai, I guess could be, now that I'm thinking about it, I almost feel like Arcuit is maybe like bottom of A tier. Mai's probably like right there. I like her. And I think she's kind of elevated in the fact that she has this like, where you start off, where she is very like, not all that talkative. Her route, you have like an extra like best friend character that you hang out with alongside Mai, to where it kind of like gives you this like way to kind of like get in there and get to know Mai a little bit better, because you have like the energetic best friend that's like your wingman, I guess, in a way. Uzuki is kind of alright-ish. I would almost say she's kind of maybe like around here. She's kind of that same thing. She's badass. She goes around. Her deal is that she's like there within the story of Akai Ito, because she's been tasked with like coming to the village and killing whatever like onis or demons that are there. And then as you get to know her, you kind of get to see some of the more cuter side of her, and how she can be very like, you know, I don't know, she's like, she has a softer side that even though she's like, you would think she's all business, that she can kind of like go past that and be more personal, I guess, if that makes sense. And then lastly, Hisame, which I like quite a bit, and I would actually say is maybe an S tier pick for me. Hisame is cute. I think her route, you have a lot of like stereotypical, maybe over the top rom-com antics that come about, but at the same time, the early portions of her route, you get to see that like hardened, almost like badass, right, where she takes on maybe a little bit too much and is like trying to like kill whatever demons or ghosts that kind of come up in the story, but at the same time has to rely off of other people, and is pretty good at like kind of looking out for other people. And even though they might seem like I had said within the trope of like being very hardened, and where you're not really like sure, like they don't, like it's harder to see like their intentions because of how like distant they feel, that deep down you can look down and see that they are always trying to like look out for the people that they're hanging out around. Hisame I like quite a bit. And I think we're like 40 minutes into this tier list. We're maybe like halfway through. We can go ahead and grab Rain from Baldur's Sky. I think Rain is probably the most prominent out of all the Baldur's Sky heroines that people would say is their like visual novel waifu. I think it is mostly the looks, but at the same time, she is kind of like that. Like I said, maybe with someone like Saya, where she sticks with the main character through the hardships, all the different bumps in the story, and will be there no matter what. And I think people really appreciate that. I think Rain is a solid waifu. I could put her maybe like up here is good. And then I guess we could do Kotori from If My Heart Had Wings. Another maybe not as prevalent as something, right, like a Saya or Kurisu or Monica, but I think a lot of people have played If My Heart Had Wings at this point, and Kotori is another tsundere character. She starts off very like brutal towards the main character, but as you go through the story more and more, you get to actually see the real side of Kotori. I like it. In a way, it's kind of like interesting, I guess you could say, of like, a relationship as far as she's handicapped, and how, as somebody that's like not handicapped, how does that kind of like change the dynamic of the relationship? And how, I know I didn't put any Karawa Shoujo characters on this list, but I remember one of the like the most popular Karawa Shoujo character, their whole point of their route is like how you might want to be like the white knight and protect the girl that you care about, but at the end of the day, they're their own human being and they can look out for themselves. I think Kotori kind of has a little bit of that too, right? She's very like strong on her own. You don't need to like, she can be her own person and doesn't need to rely off of others. Kotori I like. She's pretty like sweet character overall. There you go, long black hair. She's pretty attractive. I was gonna say top of B's here. Let's go ahead and grab another key character. What's crazy is I feel like as time has gone on, I almost feel like Summer Pockets is kind of cursed. I like literally, we could actually do both of them. The whole like controversy with Summer Pockets Reflection Blue has really drained my like excitement towards the game as a whole, as I've played more and more of it now and covered a little bit of it more on the channel. I'm like, dang, he must really be feeling it with like how, I don't know, I feel like I see so many people talk about Summer Pockets, but the people that I see that really love Summer Pockets are people on the JP side of things. So I know Ao is like the most popular, and was maybe the character that kind of brought about a lot of that controversy with Reflection Blue's English release, to where there was a specific CG that was censored, and I think it wasn't the full picture of like what was wrong with Reflection Blue on Steam, but I don't know. I like Ao as a character. we're not talking about the controversy here, but I figured it's kind of interesting to talk about a little bit of that like reflection of like how I was saying Monica, the boundaries of how Monica like goes outside of the scope of the game that she appears in. Ao kind of has that, but in a negative light, right? Where Ao is kind of the character that I can't really see as a VN waifu fully without thinking of the like the real world implications of how she's maybe the inciting incident as far as like the controversy within Key pretty recently, a couple months back at this point. Ao, I like her more than Misaki. I think probably better there. And then Tsumigi, I like Tsumigi quite a bit. I think I'm gonna put her like A tier. I rereading her route through Reflection Blue, I really remembered that. I was like, oh yeah, I did like this route. She's kind of like, I don't know, something that is like a character that's very cutesy. She's pretty like innocent, but at the same time, I don't know, I think she's sweet. I like blondes. Sumigi's cool. She's got like the key tropiness of like, okay, whatever, like key heroine has the like the catchphrase, right? So what like IU says ugu, and then like Tsumigi, bad that I'm blanking on it right now. She says Mugyu, Mugyu. It's pretty cute. I like IU, or I like IU too, but I like Tsumigi. I might like her more than Mai. Yeah, I might like her more than. I like her more than Mion. That's fine. Let's do Maya and Sumika. I'm gonna break it to you. Even though I like the sword girls, I am on Team Sumika. Maya, I like her. She's like serious. She's reliable. I like how she's like in Mobile Love Extra. She is, I guess, extra in quotation marks, where she, flaunts her wealth and uses it to kind of like chase what it is that she's after, being the relationship with the main character. And I guess in a way that's kind of cool, right? That like she knows what she wants and she'll do whatever she can to get it. Sumika is kind of in that same deal. But she's like the childhood friend. I don't know. I could talk a good amount on these two. But I don't know. I like Sumika. She's kind of another one of those, like, I like the energetic girls. And I like the childhood friend trope enough. To where I would say Sumika might be like top of A tier for me. Maya, I could probably put her above like Rain. And then let's do probably one of my least favorite Yuzu soft heroines. I've seen a fair bit of people like say that she's their like most favorite visual novel waifu. I remember seeing somebody that like had a whole room decked out with merch of her. So I think her name's Megaru. She's like the quote-unquote gamer girl. I don't know, her route I remember being very like romance centered, to where within the story of Sabrina the Witch you would think that there would be some sort of like magical kind of stuff that happens, and the magical side of Sabrina the Witch doesn't really play too much of a focus in her route. It is romance, but I remember thinking that her romance is like almost a little too played out, which I guess is maybe a good thing for some people, in that like I would say like maybe Nagisa is really uplifted off of the fact that she has an after story. Megaru doesn't have an after story, but I think you could say that maybe because she has like 2 or 3 different acts within her story that all play out of like different like evolutions or advances of the relationship, that maybe that's why people like her a lot. She's cute as well, right? Obviously. I remember, I think they have like a little sequence in Common Round where you're doing like a Halloween party. I remember she has like the most revealing Halloween outfit. So maybe that also plays a role into why people like her. I think I like her more than a lot of these other characters, but at the same time, like down here, but at the same time, I don't know, I kind of can't get past the thought of like, okay, she's kind of whatever, to me at least. I don't know. Let's go ahead and we can do Hachiroku from Maitetsu. So I don't see too many people on the English speaking side talk about Hachiroku, obviously, because I think Maitetsu as like a standalone game is it's high quality, but it's not complete because we don't have a translation for Last Run. But I like even recently been seeing tons and tons of fan art of Hachiroku, like well past the point of when Maitetsu was relevant. Like I said, I like a lot of Lou's visual novel stuff, and yeah, I don't know, I like Hachiroku. She's kind of another one of those like almost like people that are like, or characters that don't really say too much and you feel like is kind of cold at first, but then as you grow the relationship and get to know her more, she becomes more fleshed out. And I remember that is like kind of one of the key points in her route in Last Run, is that even though you as the main character get to grow the relationship and get to that point where you are in that relationship and are almost like, well, no, I think you are husband and wife. It's been a little while since I've played Last Run, but despite the fact that she's like husband and wife, she still is kind of cold to other people in her workplace. And that was like the whole thing of like, okay, Hachiroku kind of getting over that barrier and starting to interact more with people outside of her lover, right? I like Hachiroku. She's reasonably attractive as well. I feel like it's weird within her, like when she wears the like train conductor outfit, she's got all these like weird little like hairpins that stick out, that I don't know, her design is like very intricate. Hachiroku's cool. Could say maybe she's like maybe like there. And then, you know what, we can do another Lou's character. You guys might be interested in hearing my thoughts on this, because you might think that she's going to be number 1, considering that Sumi, one of the main characters in one of the main characters in Monobeno, is the character that is my YouTube channel mascot, right? So you'd think, okay, well, Sumi is obviously going to be number 1, right? I hate to break it to you, I think Sumi is not number 1 for me. The thing is, I was kind of thinking about it. I think in a way I would say, I guess looks wise, I remember first time booting up Monobeno got to the point where I saw Sumi, and I was like kind of wowed just only off of her appearance of like how bright the red in her hair streaks are, to where it really like draws your attention. And in a way, Sumi is kind of like a tsundere early game, and then when you get further and further, obviously, you get past that point. She has a full after story as well, and I would say her after story is easily like the best after story out of every after story that I've read in visual novels. You get to the point where marriage, and then also having a kid, so you get to see Sumi like not only as the girlfriend, but you also get to see Sumi as the wife and the mother, right? To where, I don't know, Sumi is quite like well fleshed out as far as like a romanceable visual novel waifu. That said, I don't know, she's not like top of the list for me. What I could say though too, kind of like how I was talking about with Monica, Sumi, for me, I maybe have a little bit of a special attachment to her because of the fact that I have her as my YouTube channel mascot. And in a way too, I remember when I was reading Monobeno, I specifically went onto Twitter and ended up following Sakura Emi, which is the voice actor for Sumi. And I remember kind of like part of the reason why maybe I like Luz a lot is because of how I saw from the voice actor's tweets and how Luz kind of treats her employees, or treated. A lot of people, even nowadays, people that worked on Monobeno and Maitetsu will still like actively talk about the games. Sakura Emi will like retweet people that do like fan art and stuff. And I remember her whole story was that she was like, she wanted to get into voice acting, was ready to give up, and then she ended up luckily landing a job with Monobeno as her first like full role. And it's kind of impressive that for somebody that was like not even anywhere like into the voice acting industry at the time, that she took a role for like a 50-hour, 60-hour visual novel and was able to like really land all of the voice lines. She doesn't sound like she's like an amateur within it. And then like going into Maitetsu, a lot of the voice actors that did roles in Monobeno were given another like role in Maitetsu, because I think Luz as a company was like very much like, I don't know, very like pro employee. They wanted to like treat their employees quite well and make sure that despite like the voice acting industry and how it might be kind of hard to like land a gig, that they wanted to kind of keep their own like people within like the network and make sure that they could make a living off of their games. And I think in a way, like, I don't know, I like Sumi as a character to me is kind of like Monica, where she breaks out of the boundaries of just the visual novel itself, and how I could think of like all these different things of like, I remember too, I played Nekopara after, and I was like, because it had been so long since Nekopara Volume 4, I heard Shigure, which is the character from Nekopara, and she's voiced by the same person as Sumi, and I was like, oh, moment of realization, because I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that Sakura Emi voices Shigure as well. But I don't know, I like Sumi quite a bit. I do think in a way she kind of embodies like, I'm not someone that's like too heavy on like, okay, well, what's my favorite visual novel developer? What's my favorite visual novel writer, right? I'm not too heavy on that, but I think in the way of like how I like Luz, Sumi kind of embodies that like love and passion of visual novels for me. To where I would say, yeah, I mean, she's not my like top of the top when it comes to visual novel waifus. I would say, Sumi gets a pass to be pretty high up there just because of the connectivity I have to her as a whole. And then I guess we can go ahead and do another Summer Pockets girl. Oh man. Shiki. So yeah, I've seen actually some people in the English side of things say that they like Shiki as well, but it's another character I see a lot of people on the JP side of things tweet out like how much they love Shiki. I liked her too. Almost kind of like you could say Sumi. They're both quote unquote onis in a way. I don't know. Sumi is a like a yokai, but Shiki is a oni. She's like a little demon lolly girl. I don't know. She's like pretty energetic. She's cute. She's funny. She got the red hair, right? I don't know. I think she's solid for what she is. She has a lot of like little quirky, like funny moments in her route. at the same time, I don't know. Shiki is alright. I would say maybe she could be like down above like Nagisa or something. Getting down towards the last few things, I guess we can go ahead and do this girl. I'm blanking on her name right now, but I think she's probably one of my more favorite Ubisoft heroines. She's like the little sister from Real Joker, and I like her. She is kind of like another one of those like, I wouldn't say clingy. She's got the older brother, like, I would say syndrome. I don't remember the name for that trope, but where she like is, oh no, brocon, I think is the phrase. She's cool, or I mean, she's cute. I don't know, she's very pretty as well. And very just like kind of like fluffy, romancy kind of things. I think almost in a way you could say she's kind of close to Mashiro from Alcana, but it just kind of depends on like, who do you like a little bit more? I think I like, despite the fact that I'm blanking on her name entirely right now, I think she can go above Rain. That might be like actually a pretty good spot for her. Let's go ahead and let's bang out Fate Stay Night. So I am currently reading Fate Stay Night. So I didn't put Sakura on here, even though I would say that Rin, Saber, and Sakura are all a trio, and I think I have seen, I mean, specifically the fact within FGO, there is literally the term coined within Type Moon fans of Saber faces, Rin faces, and Sakura faces, right? There are so many characters that all have the similar appearance to the three main heroines that started off the Fate franchise. But because I feel like I haven't interacted too much with Sakura at the point of what I have read within Fate Stay Night, just from like that early portion of Fate Stay Night, right? I wouldn't feel comfortable putting her on the list yet. But we got Saber, Rin, and then I decided to put Ilya, even though she doesn't have a route. We could talk about Ilya first, I guess, actually. Ilya is another cute and funny character, right? In the story of Fate Stay Night, it's weird because it's like, in the story, she is pretty serious, right? But then like also in the little tiger dojos, she is that like what set up how Ilya, outside of the game that she originated in, all of the stuff with like, you know, whatever spin-offs that you're going to read or watch within the Fate franchise, Ilya is pretty prominent. And I think in a way, Ilya, for the people that enjoy the type of character she is probably one of like the premier types of characters that she is. You know what I mean. Ilya, I think I like her a decent bit. She's kind of playful. She's cute. She's funny. She is another white-haired anime visual novel character, which, I don't know. I mean, it's attractive enough, right? Ilya, I also want to say, yeah, we could probably like put her above, maybe around or like above Nozomi. And then let's talk about Saber. Saber is kind of another one of those like stoic characters that you're not really sure. I mean, technically, yeah, she is one of those kind of like serious badass girls with a sword, right? But she's blonde, so she does not qualify for that specific niche for the long black hair VN heroines that I was talking about earlier. Saber is cool. I feel like I've grown to like Saber a little bit more as time has gone on. She's very like, I don't know, I want to say mature. I don't know if that's like the right word. She's very like prim, proper, I guess is the proper phrasing. She's very, I guess, old school or whatever you want to call it. I like Saber a decent amount. That said, like, I would say I like Arcuin more as far as like that more energetic as opposed to more stoic. Saber could be maybe like above Mayuri is fine. And then Rin, the premier, alongside Kurisu, right? The premier tsundere character. And what exactly does that mean? Rin is, you know, that character that, okay, well, when people think of tsundere and like anime characters that are very like cold to you, the player, early on, but then as you break that shell and get closer to them, you get to know them better. You get to realize that Rin is quite a pretty cool character. I like that she's like pretty reliable. She gets flustered whenever you say something or whatever, but at the same time she tries to like hold her cool, keep her cool, and I don't know, I like her. I guess you could say in FGO right terms, I am a fan of the Rin faces. not to say that I don't like a lot of Saber faces either, but Rin, I like her. I think she is one of those like premier VN waifus for a reason, right? I don't know how high up. We could put her like in between the two Mizuhiro waifus. I like Rin quite a bit. I think she's popular for good reason. Let's go ahead and grab, I guess we could do Alice from Monobeno. I would say Alice, actually, another one of those characters that has a full dedicated after story route, just like Nagisa from Clanad. And Alice, I like her quite a bit. She is a childhood friend. She is kind of like that energetic girl. But at the same time, almost like how I was talking about with Saki earlier from Aster, you're able to kind of see more of those like emotional moments of like, okay, well, she's more nuanced. She's not just this like flat, like character that's just going to follow along with the player and go off of like whatever, right? The person that's just going to stick with you anywhere. Alice has that whole relationship side of things of where you can get in a fight with her and she'll shout and stuff. But at the same time, maybe you go through the hardships of like, okay, well, living out like in an apartment together and seeing like, okay, well, how do we manage our money? And like, okay, well, if I'm going to school and then I have like work afterwards or whatever, Alice is maybe the stay-at-home girlfriend, but then eventually she wants to be a little bit more prominent and decides, okay, I'm going to go out job hunting because I don't want you to be the only person that's like putting in work as far as like keeping all our stuff together, right? I think Alice really has a lot of like, I like her as a character as far as like her characteristics and her looks as well, right? I think Alice is quite pretty. The whole fact of the matter within Monobeno is that like her hobby is that she like really likes to be like play dress up. She likes being thrifty and will try and like sew her own clothes and wants to like look fashionable, even though like in the start of Monobeno you're living in this like rural town that no one really cares about fashion. That's her whole hobby, is that she likes being able to be like, okay, yeah, I like dressing up. And later on when you get into like her after story and how she goes out job hunting, she's like, okay, well, I want to maybe try and work at like this department store at like, you know, with like a shopping mall or whatever with clothes and stuff. And I don't know, I like Alice. I like her quite a solid bit, and I think it really does help of her having an after story and getting to see all of like the nuance of like not having just this very like one-sided relationship and being able to see the rockiness and how you're able to kind of like overcome those hurdles to build like a lasting relationship. Let's go ahead and do Kana from Cafe Stella. I feel like she was popular a couple years ago when the game released, and I don't see too many people talk about Kana nowadays, but at the same time, I think I was like, okay, she's still prominent enough to where I would put her on the list. I don't know. She's kind of like the smug girl that'll tease the player character, but at the same time is maybe like a glass cannon, I guess some people will say. Actually, we have another character I could talk about right after this that is also a glass cannon, but like, okay, well, she'll get flustered and, you know, can dish out the romantic kind of like flirtiness, but can't really take it. I don't know, kind of is like cool, right? I don't know, she's like attractive, and I don't know, there's not much to say on Kana. I like her a decent bit, but at the same time I can't really say she's like that high up there. I want to say we could probably put her like maybe like here. I almost want to say Kana too, just like how with Nene gets a little bit of like that after story like I was literally just talking about with Alice of like living in the apartment together, right? Kana has a whole portion of her route in Cafe Stella where you do like she moves in and you get to have that little bit of a like boyfriend girlfriend relationship living together kind of moment in the story. That said, it's not too fleshed out, and I think for me, I don't think Kana is that high up there when it comes to visual novel waifus. We could talk about now the next glass cannon, and another like VN Waifu romance rivalry. The most recent visual novel that I have finished reading being untranslated Doko Iku, or Doko Iiku no Ano Hi. I'm not somebody that knows Japanese. I think if you try to translate it, it translates something to along the lines of being like, where were you on that day, or something like that. This is Emma, and then this is Chihiro. And I wanted to read Doko Iku because of I liked a different visual novel that I kind of saved towards the end, from the same studio, being Moonstone, and I was like, I really like the like emotional stories that Moonstone apparently can put out. But at the same time, I remember going into Doko Iku, and in a way, I was almost able to throw away that like really like driving force of like, I want to read Doko Iku because of it's supposed to be emotional, and like in the front, I was just like, I kind of want to experience Doko Iku because I'm looking at Emma here, and I was like, Emma looks very attractive. And I don't know, I think I can't spoil it. I want to say Emma is one of the more like tragically treated VN heroines in all of the VNs that I've read so far, to where I kind of can appreciate her as a character after finishing Doko Iku. She is another one of those, like, I guess you could say bro-con characters, where she is very clingy and is very like stern about the fact that she wants to be the girl in the relationship with the main character. And you know how hot that is depends on the person. I think Emma is quite attractive. She kind of surprisingly, I remember when I was playing Doko Iku, I could have sworn this girl Chihiro was the same voice actor as Sumika from Love. I could have sworn. So I looked it up, and they sound similar enough, but it's not the same voice actor. But to my surprise, Emma is the same voice actor as Sumika, and it's it's so completely different. Sumika is like very energetic, right? And Emma is this like very like dull, like quiet toned, like, I don't know if I had to describe it outside of the realm of visual novels. So sorry if I'm using an example that is not within the realm of visual novels. But for people, those of you that are like familiar with Madoka Magica, I almost want to say Emma is basically Homura in both like personality and in like, voice acting as well. So that if you're familiar with Homura Akemi from Madoka Magica, that's like the kind of voice acting you can expect from Emma, compared to Sumika, right? It's the same voice actor. It's so vastly different. I like Emma quite a bit. I think she's very attractive. I'll put her maybe like above Sumiki. And then Chihiro, I think I'm actually on team Chihiro over Emma. She is that like energetic girl. Like I was saying earlier, she is a glass cannon. She's very teasing, will like tease the player character with like very like forward things, like as far as like flirtiness, but at the same time can't really take it when you decide to flirt with her. She's cute. She's very like the leader of the group type of person, because within the story of Doko Iku, you are like not really doing a whole lot of like one-on-ones with the heroines. You have like a whole group of friends. I think it's like a different dynamic to where you do get moments where you get to like spend one-on-one alone time with Chihiro. But at the same time, I kind of like that you can kind of see how is like a relationship with this girl, while at the same time being around other people and having it to where you're not being awkward. I like Chihiro quite a bit. I probably recency bias. We can put her maybe like up there. Let's do this. We will do Misuzu. If I were to say like within key visual novels, right? I wouldn't say that a lot of key visual novels are designed with the express purpose of making quote-unquote waifus. Granted, yeah, could, right? But somehow, some way, I think a lot of key visual novels are made more so, obviously, for the fact of like writing these emotional stories that people are going to connect with and be like, okay, I care about the person themselves rather than the what would you call it, just like the outward appearance of that character, which is kind of something I kind of feel with Sumi, right? Where I played a whole route of a different visual novel last year about the scope of like, what does it mean to be a mascot? And right, because I'm talking about Sumi is my like YouTube channel mascot. What does it mean to be a mascot? And it means that like you are kind of like objectifying the person that you are making the mascot, and you're not really thinking of that person as a human anymore. You're thinking of them as an object. Key, I think, is kind of like that idea of like trying to make these characters feel a little bit more fleshed out and more like personal, rather than thinking of them of like, ooh, who's the hottest key character? Right. That said, going against that, I think Misuzu is probably the hottest key character. I don't know. I think I like her. She's kind of cute. She's another one of those things. So she's got the ditzy little like what's it called, like key like catchphrase, right? And she does the little like the peace signs and stuff. She's kind of like an airhead, and I don't know, but she's also very like what would be the word? I said it earlier, where she like means well and is trying to help others, right? But at the same time, I think Misuzu is probably maybe somehow the most attractive out of all the key heroines. And despite the fact that I don't particularly like Air as a visual novel as much, I think as far as like a character, I like Misuzu maybe the most out of all of the key heroines. How much so though? Like, I don't know. I almost feel like, even though I just said that, I almost want to say I like a lot of these characters more. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'd say that maybe I like Mai more, because I mean, I like Mai. I think she's attractive enough as well. Sumigi is cute, right? I almost want to say maybe they are like right next to each other though, where Sumigi is like 2.0 of Misuzu. And then lastly, let's go ahead and we could do these two from Clear, which was that visual novel that I was talking about earlier, that Doko Iku. Why I was like really wanting to read Doko Iku's, because it's from the same studio that did Clear. This is a PS2 heroine, so it's actually the same as Hisame, same game as Hisame. And both of these two characters were characters that didn't have routes in the original base game, and ended up getting routes in an enhanced edition on PS2. Is voiced by the same character, or the same person as Rin from Fate Stay Night. So already, if you think that's like a deciding factor, right? Because this is Yudru, and she is kind of like another tsundere character. So if that's already like a deciding factor, it's like, yeah, I already like off rip think Yudru is a pretty solid tsundere character. You start out as like, I guess, enemies. Yuduru's route is like that she wants to kill the protagonist. So you start off as like enemies, and then you end up becoming lovers by the end of the route. And I like it. It's got like a decent amount of emotion, but at the same time has a lot of the kind of like more like moe moments. I don't know. Maybe I like redheads more than I like brunettes with Rin. I don't know. Yuduru, I want to say, is decently up there. Maybe we can put her like, I don't know where exactly. We could probably put her like maybe around like Kood. I like her a decent bit. And then we have, I'm blanking on her name right now, Natsuki, which is like the quote-unquote main girl of Clear. To where she is that like little sister, and I almost want to say Natsuki is probably my current favorite Emoto / little sister route in visual novels. She's very cute. I could give you an example. In like how I was talking about in some of these other characters where I was like, okay, maybe it's a little bit more nuanced. Natsuki, being the little sister, gets to have a lot more time on like other character routes as well, because you're living with her. You get to see a lot more of her, and because of like the story of Clear, the main character, you the protagonist, has some sort of like secret that you hide depending on like what route you're on, and Natsuki's the only person really that knows your secret, apart from other close family members. But Natsuki is like the only one that truly understands you, the player, and is that kind of character that I was saying, where she'll follow you and be able to be that person that's going to stick with you until the end. But that said, has a little bit of that nuance. There's like a whole scene I remember where you end up getting like in a fight with her one night, and then the morning after, how the story of Clear would play out is that like every day in the morning you wake up, despite the fact that Natsuki has an alarm clock set, you end up personally going and waking her up in the morning and then telling her, get up, it's time to get ready to go to school. We're gonna have breakfast and then we'll go ahead and we'll go out to school. You get in a fight, and pretty cute scene of like you're out in the hallway in front of her room. You're like not sure if you're gonna go wake her up because you just had this big fight, and then you can hear from the hallway the alarm clock going off, and it's just like multiple minutes of the alarm clock going off. So you're like, okay, let me go inside the room and wake her up. And then you go in. You can tell that Natsuki is already wide awake, just laying in her bed, I guess in the futon, and she has the alarm clock literally blaring a couple feet away from her eardrums, and you can see her like kind of like squinting, or however you want to say, out of just like how loud it is in her ear. But she's purposely laying there because she's still like, even though you had that whole fight the night before, she still wants the main character to come and wake her up as you do every other day. Another scene in Hisame's route, actually, there is you're at this like summer festival. You're walking around the summer festival with Natsuki, and then one of the neighbors who's like a childhood friend. Hisame is like the shrine priestess, so she's like has to like do her job at the summer festival. So the main character ends up like winning a plush toy from one of the games, and then you carry it around, you bump into Hisame, you give her the plushie, and then you're gonna be like, okay, well, we'll meet up when you have your break, and then we'll actually go and visit all the stalls together. But after you give Hisame the doll, she walks away, and then Natsuki pulls up and then like grabs onto the player character's arm and just starts like violently shaking him while being like, oh Nii-chan, give me, I want a plush toy as well. I think Natsuki really sold me on Clear as far as like the moage aspects of like the route, or I mean of the game, to where I've said before, Clear is kind of like a darker version of Clannad, but at the same time has like enough like uplifting, cute romance and comedy sides within the story. And I think Natsuki being like the main heroine within Clear really sold me on Clear and made it to where like it's not just like this heavy tone of like emotion throughout the entire like weight of the story. Natsuki being like the face of Clear really did like help push me through the story of Clear. So I would say Natsuki is like maybe actually kind of like higher up. I almost want to say like, dude, it might be like top of A tier. And then now I said I was gonna organize the S tiers, so let me go ahead and we can organize the S tier to where I think, you know, we could talk about all the VN waifus, right? But despite the fact that you can have a multitude of these visual novel waifus, there can only truly be one VN wife. So let's go ahead and organize it. I think after everything has been said and done, what is the VN waifu from the S tier that I would say, for me personally, is my most favorite? I think it's gotta be Alice, which is maybe not a surprise, maybe it is, I don't know. I really like Monobeno as a visual novel, so I think it's no surprise that I would say that Alice, for me, is my favorite visual novel heroine. But yeah, is there anything else as far as like, I think I did organize A through C a solid amount. But yeah, I think that is going to be my iteration of a visual novel waifu tier list. Thank you guys for watching. I've been Wave, and I'll see you next time.